develop trusted leaders for faithful churches. It's time for you to respond to the calling God has on your life. Take classes from an institution that you can trust for a calling that will not go away. Learn more about your opportunities at wbs.edu. That's wbs.edu.
Jenna Ellis in the morning on American Family Radio.
I love talking about the things of God because of truth and the biblical worldview.
The U.S. Constitution obligates our government to preserve and protect the rights that our founders recognize come from God, our Creator, not our government. I believe that Scripture in the Bible is very clear that God is the one that raised up each of you, and God has allowed us to be brought here to this specific moment in time.
This is Jenna Ellis in the morning.
Good morning. Good morning. It is Wednesday, November 20th, and the mandate that Donald Trump and the entire Republican federal Congress received from the American people centered really, I think, on not only a repudiation and total rejection of the left and their insanity, and we'll get to men are men and women are women in just a moment, but a large part of that as well is border security. And according to Blaze Media, a conflict is brewing within the House GOP conference between moderates and mass deportation hardliners. Now, of course, President Trump and also his border czar Tom Homan have been very clear that they are going to even utilize the military to help execute mass deportations. And for a lot of conservatives, myself included, I think this is a very good thing. We need to get rid of not just the criminals, but anyone who is here illegally should not just have amnesty perpetually and just be able to be here illegally. If you're here illegally, no, you need to leave the country and, come back in a legal way or figure it out legally. But let's talk to one of the mass deportation hardliners and someone who probably agrees with me, which is a Representative Chip Roy from the great state of Texas. So, Chip, why are some in the Republican conference kind of wavering on this? I mean, is this just pressure from the leftist media because they're worried about optics?
Well, good morning, Jenna. I'm glad to be on the show. Look, I think this is pretty simple. It's more of the same. President Trump was ushered in with a mandate, as were the Republicans in the House and the Senate along with him. And significantly, I might point out that on the front of the RNC building, there were great big signs on the front of it saying mass deportation. What that is a response to the blatant violation of the law, the violation of our sovereignty and the endangerment of the American people, as you know, as we've talked about with fentanyl poisoning and the death of, thousands of Americans at the hands of criminal aliens dumped into our streets. The correct reaction by the American people is to say that when this administration violated our laws, dumped people into our country, that those people should be removed. They were released into the United States in violation of law. There was no mechanism that the people had embraced, passed laws to do that. The administration was just unilaterally doing it unlawfully. So our position is that should be reversed. I know that's the position of Tom Homan, for example. President Trump campaigned upon it. So now you've got the usual suspects, Republicans, who are the very people who gave us the mess that is our immigration system even prior to the Biden administration. And that's something that I want to remind your listeners, Jenna. President Trump ran on building the wall in 2016. So if people think a return to the status quo prior to the Biden abuses is what we're striving for, they're crazy. We need to reverse the damage of decades of bad immigration and border security policy. We need to secure the border. We need to enforce it. H.R. 2 needs to be passed, signed into law. We need policy changes. Yes, we need to reinstate return to Mexico and the migrant protection protocols and Title 42 to stop the flow. But we need permanent reforms. Build the wall, yes, but pass the policies. And you need to deport the millions of people released into the United States, not just criminals, but people who ignored our laws, came in, got aways. How about other people, though, who were released unlawfully, regardless of whether they're sympathetic or not? It's not easy, but we need to remove people that came here illegally.
So does anyone in the Republican conference actually disagree with what you just said? Because that seems very clear that you're just following the law.
So go back couple of decades, right? I remember when we were having these debates in the 2000s about amnesty and about border, and we couldn't get people even to want to build the wall then. Remember it was controversial during the Bush administration. President Trump campaigned on building the wall. That was in reaction to the weak Republicans who were in the hip pocket of the Chamber of Commerce, who were the people that would sit there on the border with a sign that said no trespassing, but then they would wink, wink, nod, nod, and hold another sign saying help wanted, come in here for cheap labor. And they would ignore our laws and our system and created the mess that we're in. They'd fight us when we said birthright citizenship, as it has been interpreted to mean that if you can come over here with anchor babies, you get to stay, or when you have the pressure of having people come here and they overstay their visas, oh, but they're working. And so then the entire sovereignty and rule of law is turned on its head. It is weak Republicans. It is Wall Street Journal editorials. It's the Chamber of Commerce pressure. Those same Republicans today exist in our conference, exist in the Senate, and they want to push back on the notion that we campaigned on, which is we need to deport the people illegally and illegitimately released. They are not many, and I believe and hope that President Trump and the American people and the rest of us in the Republican House and in the Republican Senate will do the right thing, and then those folks will have to go along. But those same folks exist, Jenna. They've existed for a long time. We're just fortunately pushing back on it. The American people that gave us a mandate, we have to deliver.
Absolutely, and I can't wait to see what the Trump administration and the new Congress does. So what about the Democrats on the other side, and especially in the states? I mean, so just yesterday, Los Angeles City Council voted unanimously to become a sanctuary city to try to prevent President Trump's mass deportation plan. What does the federal government do if and when blue states are going to say, well, too bad, we're going to protect all of the illegals within our borders?
Well, number one, we should enforce the law throughout the country, as we are not only allowed to do, but we are actually duty-bound to do. Immigration, border security certainly has a significant federal focus and purpose, and it's literally put into the Constitution. So we have a duty to deal with it. But importantly, just to give you my short answer, is just take their money away. Just don't give any money. I mean, these states, they want their funding. It could be anything from grants for their, law enforcement or whatnot to the Department of Justice, or it could be Medicaid money or education money or anything. Just don't send them any money. Say if you're not going to follow the laws, you're going to endanger the American people with your sanctuary cities. Well, then we're not going to send you any money.
And that seems very simple. And I really hope that the Republican Congress and the majorities in both chambers have the spine and the stomach to actually do that and to force some of this change through that really is constitutional. So, I mean, this just seems really simple, but my concern overall isn't that, there isn't a pathway towards this or that Trump isn't going to try to push this, but that eventually the Republican majorities will somehow cave and the Democrats get what they want, because that seems to be usually how it goes. So hopefully with people like you and others that are standing up firmly and are willing to support President Trump in this, we'll actually see a lot of this accomplished. But I know that you have to run pretty soon, and I appreciate your time this morning, Representative Chip Roy from the great state of Texas. So one last question on this whole ridiculous non-reality bathroom nonsense. Speaker Johnson clarified yesterday his comments, just saying, a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and a man can't become a woman. How is Congress planning to deal with the stupidity of a Delaware representative who is clearly a man now running around in a dress wanting to go into the women's bathrooms?
Jenna, if we can't deal with it in Congress, if we can't be clear that a man is a man, a woman is a woman, and that, we should treat it as such, then we can't expect the rest of the country to treat it as such. We've got to stop, allowing this absurdity to be put front and center. We have real problems that we've got to deal with in this country, very real problems, including mental health, including the absurdity of what we've been doing across this country with the pressure on our young people with respect to, changing their sex. Chloe Cole has been wonderful about this, as you know, talking about it and the impacts. We've got to actually stand up for the good and the sake of our children and the mental health of the American people and say enough is enough. I'll I will work with the speaker and we'll figure out what we need to do internally in terms of our rules and stuff. But you just need to answer the question. When this first came up yesterday, the simple question is this individual a man or a woman? This individual is a man. And society can't ignore those obvious differences and then mess with these common sense things. Like bathrooms are just simple. There's men and there's women. And whatever your biological sex is, that's what it ought to be. But, we're going to have to address it if we expect the country to do the right thing. Congress has to do the right thing.
Well, thank you for standing up very firmly and just very simply for the truth and not buying into the delusions of the left, because they want us to participate in their fiction, and we can simply say no, and it's not unkind. It's not treating them without dignity. In fact, I think it's actually more dignity for them to say, this is the reality. And so Representative Chipper, I really appreciate your time this morning. We're going to let him go to get to where he needs to be. But I want to continue just in the last few minutes of this segment, talk about this whole issue. And he's absolutely right that, Speaker Johnson initially in the leadership conference was asked this question by a reporter and initially just didn't even want to participate in the conversation. And I get where Speaker Johnson was going with this. He got a lot of pushback from saying, you just need to directly answer the question that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. And he came out later and clarified that. That has always been his position. I've known Speaker Johnson personally for years. I know that is his position. He has never wavered on that. But it's just such a ridiculous question that to ask if a man is a woman is almost like if you dignify that with a response and even entertain the question and the possibility, then in a sense you are participating in the delusion to an extent to even say that is a rational question. So I get that was where he was going initially, but I want to play his two responses for you since Representative Chipper mentioned this. So this was Speaker Johnson initially responding to the reporter in the leadership conference. This is cut 2.
Mr. Speaker, is freshman-elect Sarah McBride a man or a woman?
Look, I'm not going to get into this. We welcome all new members with open arms who are duly elected representatives of the people. I believe it's a command that we treat all persons with dignity and respect, and we will. And I'm not going to engage in silly debates about this. There's a concern about the uses of restroom facilities and locker rooms and all that. This is an issue that Congress has never had to address before, and we're going to do that in deliberate fashion with member consensus on it, and we will accommodate the needs of every single person. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Do you plan on bringing Nancy Mace's transgender bill and putting that into the rules package?
I'm not going to address the plans on any of that. I just told you what I'm going to say about the issue. I'm not going to engage in this. We don't look down upon anyone. We treat everybody with dignity and respect. That's a principle that I've pursued my whole life, and we will take care of this, issue of first impression for Congress, as we will any other thing. We'll provide appropriate accommodation for every member of Congress.
All right, so not a great answer. I get where he was going, but it sounded more like he was going to provide accommodation to this man who's in a dress in Congress, which is utterly ridiculous and absurd that anyone should have to participate in his delusions instead of simply saying, no, you go to the bathroom that your biology dictates. And so Johnson clarified his statement later, and he said this. This is cut 3.
Hello, everybody. I just want to make a statement for all of you here and be very clear. I was asked a question this morning at the leadership gaggle, and I rejected the premise because the answer is so obvious. For anybody who doesn't know my well-established record on this issue, let me be unequivocally clear. A man is a man, and a woman is a woman, and a man cannot become a woman. That said, I also believe, that's what Scripture teaches, what I just said, but I also believe that we treat everybody with dignity. And so we can do and believe all those things at the same time. And I wanted to make that clear for everybody because there's lots of questions. But that's where I stand. I've stood there my whole life, and those are facts.
And those are facts. And so for everyone who is making this a big deal on the left and saying, how dare you be hateful and bigoted, they are being hateful and bigoted toward reality. They're not, and toward anyone who is suggesting that we simply don't participate in their delusion. So I hope that Speaker Mike Johnson stands up very firmly, whatever the actual resolution is not for some kind of accommodation here, but to protect women on Capitol Hill as well. They deserve protection just as much as women in sports, just as much as patrons in a Target bathroom. I mean, this is just utterly absurd that we're having to deal with this in 2024. But here we are. So Speaker Mike Johnson, stand firm. We'll be right back with more.
The words you are about to hear are taken from letters sent in by members of the Trinity Debt Management Program.
Dear Trinity, today I'm making my final credit card payment.
Before I came to you, I was in a constant state of anxiety and panic, but now there is hope for my family's financial future.
Working with Trinity made me understand that I'm not alone.
You really do help people.
Your kindness will never be forgotten.
Without Trinity's support, I would not have achieved my lifelong goal of becoming debt-free.
We saved a lot on interest and penalties, of course, but the reward was the gift of human kindness.
Trinity has carried me through a very difficult time in my life. You're amazing.
I used to feel so anxious and hopeless. Now I feel grace and peace.
God bless Trinity as you continue to help others become debt-free.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813. That's 1-800-788-1813.
So right now may be the perfect time for you to rethink how you pay for health care. And here's why. This time of year is decision time for a lot of people, but it's also when you can join MediShare and save even more than usual. For many families, joining MediShare means saving about $500 a month, which is a game changer for a lot of people, obviously. But what's more, MediShare members like it a lot. Their satisfaction rate is 98%. Imagine that. And MediShare is a proven thing, too, for over 30 years. It's a Christian community of hundreds of thousands of people now. And here's the thing. If you join before November 30th and you mention the promo code SHARE, they'll waive your application fee. So you save even more right off the bat. I'll give you the number here in a second, but just call and you'll get a price within 2 minutes. And again, the deadline is November 30th. So call now and you'll save even more. Here's the number: 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Starnes. Stand by for news and commentary next. There's only one thing that triggers the nation's academic community more than President-elect Donald Trump, and that would be Jesus Christ. From campusreform.com comes word that a student at the University of Virginia was reported for wearing a red Make America Christian Again ball cap. Simon Goldstein says he was reported to the school's Office of Equal Opportunity and Civil Rights. The compliance director reached out and told Goldstein that she wanted to know if he was aware his hat might make people feel uncomfortable. Then she asked if he had any plans to wear another hat. Simon said he had no regrets and planned to keep on wearing the Make America Christian Again hat, and good for him. It does make you wonder if the Office of Equal Opportunity has had similar conversations with students waving rainbow flags or wearing Antifa T-shirts. And by the way, if a red hat really does trigger you, I would strongly recommend professional counseling. I'm Todd Starnes.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis in the Morning on American Family Radio.
Welcome back. And speaking of border security, this really does play into national security as well. And so the left, of course, is trying to scramble in the last 2 months before Donald Trump is re-inaugurated and inaugurated for a second term. And the state of Texas is offering Trump over 1,400 acres of land to stage the deportation operation. So this coming from U.S. News. Texas is offering 1,402 acres of land along the border with Mexico to the incoming Trump administration to lease as a part of a plan for the mass deportation of immigrants. The Texas General Land Office said on Tuesday Donald Trump is expected to mobilize agencies across the U.S. government to help him deport record numbers of immigrants, building on efforts in his first term to tap all available resources and pressure so-called sanctuary jurisdictions to cooperate. And other reports this morning, including from Daily Wire and also also from some clips of Trump himself, expect that he will declare a national emergency. Hey, remember that the Democrats love to do that, and they think that was, fine for anything from COVID hysteria to climate change. Well, Donald Trump is kind of flipping that on its head and declaring, is poised potentially to declare a national emergency and then mobilize the military to actually help with some of these mass deportations. So how could this affect military operations, national security? Well, let's bring on Scott Eulinger. He is a former naval intelligence officer. Good morning, Scott. And, what do you think about this whole mass deportation plan in terms of national security?
Well, it's very interesting that the Democrats like to talk about that this is impossible, this cannot be done. But what history tells us is that Obama himself deported 3 million people. And I've actually heard some figures that President Bill Clinton deported almost 10 million people. So this has been done before. Now, it's true that perhaps some of those could have been self-deportations by basically cutting the welfare system, which Bill Clinton did, and making it more difficult for illegal immigrants to process payments and send them down to their families. And by taxing it more heavily, obviously, then a lot of people self-deport. So it's been done before, and the Democrats love to say that it's utterly impractical.
And it's so ridiculous that the Democrats are suggesting that it's impractical, or that somehow, Donald Trump doesn't have the available legal mechanisms and tools that have been available in even past Democrat administrations, like you mentioned, Scott. And, so I'm seeing this almost being staged the same way that they attacked Trump in 2016, that the rules and the law never apply to him unless they're trying to target him with lawfare. Then they'll manipulate anything that they want, and they'll even create legal fictions to go after him. But when he wants to actually avail himself of the powers that come with the chief executive officer of the United States, then somehow that doesn't apply. And so I'm expecting, of course, a lot of litigation over this and so forth. But in terms of, just declaring a national emergency, that's probably accurate in terms of a description of all of, especially the violent criminals that are illegally here in the United States.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, it's unprecedented, the amount of foreign illegal criminal gangs that are active in the United States and are posing a physical danger to the American people. So when you talk about, the United States using the military and, there's, I think it's called posse comitatus, using the U.S. military to defend the border. I mean, we're talking about using the U.S. military here to defend American lives, which is one basic reason we have a government in the first place, and one basic reason we have the military. So using the military to basically eliminate fentanyl, producers, fentanyl smugglers and stuff, as Mr. Homan has said, is, I think, absolutely justified. I mean, these people are destroying American lives at a clip that's like the Vietnam War. So, I mean, you talk about a danger to the American people and a very good justification for the use of military force. You've got it right there.
Absolutely. And I think this is not only a chief part of the mandate from the American people and the voters, but absolutely one of the top priorities that the federal government is obligated constitutionally to provide, which is safety and security and the uniform rule of immigration and naturalization, and to provide penalties for people who come across the border illegally. So, I mean, this all just makes sense, but I'm speaking with, if you don't get politics in the middle of it and you don't, mess up the common sense with politics, then, maybe there's some rationality here. But I'm speaking with Scott Eulinger, who's a former naval intelligence officer, and I want to kind of turn the page to maybe quote Kamala and go to another topic on Ukraine. So of course, Trump is looking at using the military in a very completely different way. And in the last 2 months of the Biden-Harris administration, now we are seeing the escalation of this conflict in Ukraine and Russia with the go-ahead from Biden to use these long-range missiles that were provided by the United States into Russia. I mean, this is a proxy war. Can Biden spur on this conflict and escalate it so far that once Trump takes office, it's going to be very difficult to de-escalate?
Now, fortunately, regarding this, and it is outrageous, as you pointed out, I believe that that Putin, and who I'm not defending because he invaded Ukraine after all, but Putin is not a stupid man, and so he has resisted the gradual ratcheting up of the war in terms of deployment of a lot of things that we were talking about 2 years ago. Oh, should we deploy? Should we export, sell F-16s, things like that? Well, that's been done already. And so, in other words, all of these things are adding to the fire of that war. Now, Putin so far has resisted that, and I believe that he will resist this. In other words, he knows the American elections. He knows that it's happened, and so he is going to grit his teeth and wait despite the Democrats doing this. And by the way, this cuts down to the whole debate we started having, more than a year ago, is Biden is in the Amazon at like the G20 conference, and Pamela Harris is in Hawaii. So the big question is, who the heck ordered this? And now we get back to command and control and who has our nuclear codes, because I'm pretty much convinced that this was not Biden's decision. He did not decide to do this. So the question is, who in God's name is deciding to do this stuff? And it's not Harris, and it's not Biden.
And that raises the all-important question of who has actually been driving the Biden-Harris administration over the last 4 years. And that's a question that Kamala Harris refused to answer on the campaign trail, and the Democrats have refused to answer. But that is an all-important question. Who do you speculate potentially is running the operations within? And are some of these people perhaps deep state holdovers that the Trump administration needs to make sure that they are rid of, that they're not just political appointees that will be, washed out with the next incoming administration?
Right, that's true. And so who is responsible for this? I think politically the tone of the whole disastrous Biden presidency was set by Obama. Now, I'm not sure, however, whether he personally is trying to ratchet up the war in Russia. I think what it's more likely is, for instance, the Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor, and the National Security Council of Biden are the ones who are doing this, I believe, with perhaps some input from some globalists, I guess, who influence the politicians, people outside the government. So the good news about that is, as disastrous as that is, I know because I've been attending some of the meetings, the Trump administration and its associated, let's say, think tanks and foundations are very aware of this problem, and they have a comprehensive and very detailed plan for rooting out these people, which did not occur in 2016. But it's going to occur this time, and these people are going to be tossed out on their ears. Trump has already warned the bureaucrats of the executive branch that he will be ruthless as far as removing people who are impediments. And so I believe that is going to occur, and hopefully occur very quickly. But these people will be rooted out.
Yeah, I hope that it does occur and that it occurs very quickly, as you mentioned, Scott Eulinger, because you're right that in 2016, I think especially because Trump was so new to D.C., he genuinely was an outsider, came in and was in some ways just blindsided by the corruption of the deep state, and not only having some people even that he brought in that didn't serve him and his agenda well, but especially the people who were holdovers that just didn't think he had a place in Washington, even though he had been elected by the will of the American people in the Electoral College, which is utterly absurd. But this is why, Doge and some of just the appointees already, the nominations that Trump has selected. I mean, what I see is kind of the common thread that I've been talking about throughout this week is that they're all people who are going to upset the apple cart, that they're going to go into Washington and just say, okay, enough is enough. We are going to be the firebrand kind of ousters here to clean up each of these departments that they are going to head. And so how does that relate to somebody like a Pete Hegseth, who is going to be the Secretary of Defense, when we're talking about somebody like a Putin who's watching this over the next couple of months and thinking, okay, having to make some calculations of how far does he go, knowing that Trump is getting ready in just the next 60 days to return to the White House?
Right. Well, it's a good question. I think Pete Hegseth is a very good choice, certainly in the veterans community, which nationally, which I've been monitoring closely. That you see nothing but thumbs up regarding that, because the bottom line is he's an outsider. He's not a contractor. He didn't work for Raytheon like our idiot Defense Secretary Austin right now, and so he will be going in there. Now, what Hegseth needs is a good team of individuals who will help him understand the blob that is the Pentagon, because, I mean, it's an unbelievably daunting job. But at the same time, he needs to get in there and start reform, and he will be he's not going to be actually doing these cuts. I mean, he is an executive. He is going to be leading the way, and he's going to need dozens of people to help him do this. One step in the right direction is to basically everyone a flag or general officer rank almost needs to be removed at this point, because these generals who were all promoted, who basically owe their careers to Obama and upward, basically were hired because of DEI standards and not warfighting abilities. And these people are responsible for our recent military disasters in Afghanistan and elsewhere. And so there needs to be a reckoning. And already you can see that there are Pentagon officials who are very nervous at this prospect and talk about damaging morale of the troops and such, when in fact the morale of the troops will surge when they see that there is some accountability in the senior ranks, just as there is to this day in the junior ranks.
Yeah, and Jesse Kelly was posting similar comments on X yesterday, saying that this actually would boost the morale, and President Trump has also kind of recommended that he might have some of these, especially the officers that helped with the botched Afghan withdrawal, to be brought back, and even some who've retired since, to be court-martialed. Is that a possibility? And what would that actually look like? And because there's also a report that even some DOJ and FBI officials anticipate being criminally investigated. That was coming from Breitbart yesterday.
That's right. I think all of them fear criminal investigation. Now, under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the military's justice system, that is certainly possible. Retiring is not going to save you. These people who are accused of crimes can be recalled to active duty, and a court and a simple courts-martial an investigation of courts-martial can be convened with officers of equivalent rank. And so, some close people to the president have talked about, like Steve Bannon, have talked about recalling Milley, head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who definitely committed highly questionable, if not treasonous, actions as far as speaking to the Chinese government about Trump. I mean, do I think that someone like him should be recalled and be given a court-martial and an investigation? No question. A trial is a trial. He may not be found guilty, but I want to see exactly what he is being accused of and exactly what he did to harm national security.
Absolutely, and I think that the American people, and certainly, like you said, those in the lower military ranks would like to just see some accountability. I mean, this isn't just saying there's a presumption of guilt or presumption of some kind of consequence, but simply that accountability. And so let's hope that a lot of these things that we're talking about, Scott Eulinger, actually come to fruition in a Trump administration. Of course, we're projecting out, and he is, of course, making those promises now as president-elect to come in and to overhaul the federal government, provide some of that accountability. And so what does this look like in terms of the United States and our relationship with Israel? I was incredibly impressed with his selection of a former governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee, to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel. I know our good friend Joel Rosenberg was very excited about that choice. And for listeners as well, Joel Rosenberg has an interview, actually an exclusive, that he posted at allisrael.com of his interview with Mike Huckabee. But in terms of what all of this signals to in terms of our foreign policy and what Donald Trump is going to bring back to our relationship with Israel, what do you anticipate moving forward?
All of this is excellent for U.S. foreign policy. Even the U.S. investigating its embarrassments and it's airing its dirty laundry is a good thing. Why? Because it's showing our allies and our enemies that the United States has flaws, But unlike many other countries in the world, and this is one thing that distinguishes the United States, eventually Americans come face to face with their flaws, with what they've done wrong, and they seek to readdress and correct it. This is a very strong message that gets sent out to the world that is very hard to overestimate its effect, because most countries cannot do these things. They cannot reform. And they look with envy at a country like the United States, which produces entrepreneurs like Elon Musk and can fix what is wrong with our country. Plus, it's not just Israel. It's, believe it or not, the United States coming out strongly against Israel, for Israel, is actually going to help us in our relations with countries like the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, because they are also allies, strong allies, which we basically cast aside under the Biden administration. But already these countries can see that we're going to be going back to being a good ally again. And so this is a very powerful message that also does things like dissuade China from even thinking about invading Taiwan. Because when the United States stands by its allies, that ensures peace because of the peace through strength principle.
Absolutely. And this is why I think why so many people got out and voted for Donald Trump. This is part of this overall mandate of peace through strength, but strength in all of these areas that we've been talking about, because people are so tired of the weak and feckless administration that was Biden-Harris and that still currently is, and how it is not serving the best interests of the American people, but also our allies. And so in just the last couple of minutes I have with you, Scott Uhlinger, with respect to obviously the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and then Israel and Hamas, and then you touched on China and Taiwan. What about foreign policy as a whole? I mean, what does this say to? And do we have him still? I think Scott, are you there? I still have you. Well, maybe he's not. I don't know. We'll see. This is live radio. Scott, can you hear me? We'll see. Well, I think he's gone, and that's okay. Well, maybe we'll just take our break here anyway, then, Devin. But so we'll go to break, and we'll have to ask Scott Uhlinger that question when he comes back. Unless, Scott, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, we got him back. Then, just in the last minute we have with you, I'll reiterate my question. What does all of this signal for foreign policy overall?
Like I said, it's going to be a return to stability, because these countries, which are adversaries of the United States, are going to be seeing that daddy's home, and we are intent on cleaning our own house, intent on basically reemphasizing our ties to our allies. And this is going to stabilize the world situation, which has been countries like Iran, North Korea, Russia, China have been taking advantage of, as you said, this feckless administration. And that is about to stop. Now, that doesn't mean all world problems are going to stop, but it does mean that we're going to go back to the stability of the Trump years, because what people really don't remember, especially Democrats, they don't want to remember, is that there was an unusual period of worldwide stability between 2016 and 2020, which I'm almost certain we're going to be returning to.
Well, I'm very excited for that, and the stability that hopefully we can expect from the second Trump term is going to be really a breath of fresh air in terms of our position in terms of the world stage. So, Scott Uhlinger, really appreciate it. Sorry for the tech issues there, but always appreciate your comments, and we'll be right back with more here on Jenna Ellis in the Morning.
Here's Pastor Jeff Shreve with From His Heart Ministries.
We need to just say, Lord, I don't understand why these dark lines have come into my life, but I trust you because I know beyond any shadow of a doubt that you are good. See, I can come to a God like that, who loves me, who's gentle, who's humble in heart.
Learn the depth of God's goodness. Join Pastor Jeff Shreve on From His Heart each weeknight at 6 Central here on American Family Radio.
Every weekday, strengthen your family and your faith with Family Talk.
I had the same brain
when I was at the bottom of the class that I had at the top of the class. Exactly the same brain, but a different attitude. What does that tell us about our responsibility to develop the intellect of the people in our spheres of influence?
Don't miss Family Talk with Dr. James Dobson every weekday at 6:30 a.m. and 9:30 p.m. Central on AFR.
As the world changes in an era of crisis, families throughout America are experiencing instability, fear, and great loss. While many are searching for answers in places of desperation, the position and mission of the church has never been more clear. It's time for us to leave the buildings and saturate the streets with redemptive hope and the love of Jesus. Saturate USA is a movement of churches and believers across America, uniting as one to reach every home with the love of the gospel. At SaturateUSA.org, you and your church can join the movement by adopting a zip code and receiving free neighborhood maps and evangelistic materials, including Jesus Film DVDs with free online streaming. Simply mobilize your volunteers, assemble your saturation packs with free materials and your own church's information, and then send out teams to distribute to homes. Let's partner together and see every zip code in America adopted for Christ. Join the movement at SaturateUSA.org.
Wherever the gospel goes, lives are changed. Lives like Sonia's. When Sonia came to a Tomorrow Club, she had little reason to hope for a better future.
As Armenian refugees living in a remote community in the Republic of Georgia, life was desperately hard for Sonia and her family. The recent death of her baby brother had made things even worse, and her mother had fallen into a deep depression. At the club, Sonia heard the gospel and her faith began to grow as she attended weekly club meetings. Soon, a small church grew out of the Tomorrow Club, and Sonia prayed her mother would come to the church. Sonia's prayers were answered. Her mother came, surrendered her life to Christ, recovered from her depression, was baptized, and now leads the Tomorrow Club where her daughter found Christ.
Partnering with local churches, Tomorrow Clubs help kids and teens in forsaken places learn to follow Jesus through long-term discipleship. To learn more about how Tomorrow Clubs are reaching young hearts and minds for Christ, visit tomorrowclubs.org. That's tomorrowclubs.org. All gifts are tax deductible. Welcome back to Jenna Ellis in the Morning on American Family Radio.
Well, the American Family Association is always very excited to partner with Operation Christmas Child and Samaritan's Purse to provide shoeboxes for children around the world at Christmas time. And you can participate by packing a shoebox and dropping it off at a Dropbox location. You can find out more about how to pack a shoebox, view the gift suggestions, find the nearest drop-off location, and follow your box at SamaritansPurse.org/OCC for Operation Christmas Child. That's SamaritansPurse.org/OCC. And to give you an idea of the eternal impact that you can make by packing a shoebox, this may seem like a very, very simple thing for those of us who have grown up in the United States, who have had the blessings of liberty and, frankly, prosperity in the United States. This is something that actually has a huge, huge, and very meaningful impact to the children around the world that receive these shoeboxes. And I'm very blessed to be joined now by Operation Christmas Child's Alex Singiama. I believe I'm pronouncing that right, but you can let me know. But Alex, you have an incredible story from your childhood with Operation Christmas Child.
Yeah, thank you, Jenna, for having me this morning and for the opportunity to share about how Operation Christmas Child made a difference really in my life as a little boy. I was born and raised in Rwanda at a time when tribal unrest was at its greatest back in the 90s, and that hatred that was that resulted into a genocide against the Tutsi tribe was a result of many, many years, from 1800s during the colonial time when people were divided in tribes and one tribe was taught to hate the other tribe, to the point where a neighbor wouldn't see their own neighbor as human beings or as friends. So because of this, in 1994, a genocide broke out and over 1 million people were killed and over 400,000 orphans were left in the country. Unfortunately, that included my caretakers at that time, my grandmother and one of my uncles. So me and my brother and my sister, we found ourselves running from place to place from family to family. But while we were running, God was doing so many miracles to protect us. As we continued to run, I remember very specifically when a man's weapon didn't work when he went to pull the trigger. Instead, his weapon jammed up. And then at the end, I would fall and I would slip in a cow pie and a bullet would miss my head by an inch. So miracles after miracles that God was doing. And in the end, I was put in an orphanage when the genocide ended. This was 1995. But right in 1994, when the genocide ended in July, one of the first organizations that came to respond to help people was Samaritan's Purse. So they started to treat the wounded, and then a year later, in 1995, they brought Operation Christmas Child Shoebox Gift to our orphanage, and that's when, for the very first time in my life, Jenna, I got to receive a gift for the very first time, and it was very special.
That is an incredible story of God's providence and keeping you safe. And so when you received this gift from Operation Christmas Child, describe what that experience meant to you and how it changed your life.
Yeah. When I received that Operation Christmas Child shoebox gift, I was living with the 250 other kids. All of us had lost our loved ones, and it was a time of hopelessness. But when we were told to line up in the yard on one day, and they hand out this gift, and then they said, don't open your gifts until all of them have been handed out. So some of us had to hold our presents for about 5 minutes. That's a 5 minutes, long 5 minutes for a 7-year-old.
Yes.
But we got to celebrate together, and all of us were screaming of excitement. This time we were not screaming because we were scared or because someone was trying to chase us. But we were screaming because we could not contain the joy of receiving things such as school supplies and toys and having little hygiene items and the coloring books. In that shoebox gift, I kept a hair comb for the next 3 years everywhere I went, and that's how important those items were. But the deeper impact started when the orphanage director decided to share with us about Jesus Christ and about faith, using that Operation Christmas Child shoebox gift. And that for me, a seed of the gospel was planted. Then a year later, I joined the choir, and that's when my faith journey continued to grow because God sent me people to disciple me and water that seed that had been planted by that shoebox gift.
That is incredible. And now you are one of the ones that are packing shoebox gifts for other children. And how did that ultimately come about that you've now been able to participate in Operation Christmas Child as an adult and actually see the giving of gifts to other children?
Yeah. When I got to receive that shoebox gift, that seed of the gospel was planted, and people came in my life who mentors, who challenged me. And I was in Uganda when I actually gave my life to the Lord because I was starting to think that God loved me, that God cared. I started to struggle with the anger that towards the people who had killed my grandmother and my uncle. And while we were traveling, we were being discipled, and that discipleship continued to go deeper. But years later, I got adopted into a family in the United States, and I grew up in Minnesota. So as a 15-year-old, I returned to the United States and went to school. When I was in high school, my high school wanted to pack shoeboxes, so we did that in high school and in college. I was a project leader in college where we would pack shoeboxes every single year. We would invite students to bring shoebox items, and we would get together. We'd do a packing party, and we would pack shoeboxes, and we would drop them off at a drop-off location. And this week, drop-off locations are open all over the country. But then in 2013, I moved to North Carolina to start serving alongside Operation Christmas Child. And it's such a joy, such a humbling experience to be on this side of the journey, to be able to see how many shoeboxes are being packed, because each and every shoebox gift that is packed represents children who are going to hear the gospel just like I did. This year, we have a goal of packing 12 million shoeboxes worldwide. That is 12 million children that are going to be impacted even through their local church. And it's so fun. Anyone can do it, and it's a joyful moment to be able to make an impact in a child's life.
It is fun, and it is such a joyful moment. And my church, both in Colorado and now my home church in Florida, are part of this, and we get to help pack shoeboxes. And hearing stories like this, and especially from someone who actually received a shoebox, is so encouraging, and I hope is motivating to those of you who have maybe heard about Operation Christmas Child, but you haven't yet participated, or if you have in the past, to say, these are real people whose lives you're impacting, not only with the kindness and the love of Christ, but also with the truth of the gospel of Christ. So that National Collection Week is November 18th through 25th. So make sure that you are packing your shoebox. And you had mentioned, Alex, that one of the items that you kept with you for several years was this comb. What kind of items should people pack that are the most meaningful?
Yeah. When you pack your Operation Christmas Child shoebox gift, think of a wow item such as a soccer ball, such as a stuffed animal, or a toolkit, or a sewing kit. And you pack that item in there. Think of an item that when the child opens that shoebox gift, they're going to be screaming of excitement, screaming of joy. And then the other items such as school supplies and hygiene items. We encourage you to personalize your shoebox gift. And you can write a letter, make it fun items. Think of the items that you used to enjoy as a little kid, and you can get new items that never been used and pack that gift. And then we ask that you pray for that child, because that shoebox gift that you'll be holding in your hands, you'll be packing, represents a child with a name around the world praying, maybe for a hair comb or maybe for something, and God will lead you to do that, to put that item in there. And then we continue to write that letter, personalize it, and make it full. And if you shake that shoebox gift, there's still some space. Maybe throw some washcloths in there, extra toy, something that the child would enjoy.
And is there a way to differentiate if the shoebox is going intended for a boy versus a girl? Some questions that we've received have said, what about some of those specific types of toys?
Yeah. When you pack your Operation Christmas Child shoebox gift, you can you actually get a chance to think of a boy or girl, and you choose an age. The categories are 2 to 4, 5 to 9, and 10 to 14. And there's a label on our website at SamaritanSpurs.org/OCC. I can give you more details. You can even actually print that label online if you don't have one physical one. And we ask for a suggested $10 donation towards that to send that shoebox gift and equip the people, train the teachers. If you do that online, you can actually get a label, and you can activate that label, and you'll be able to know what country your shoebox gift went to. And that's a way to follow your box. And if you get to a point where, oh my goodness, I'm not able to pack a physical one, you can also pack a shoebox online at SamaritanSpurs.org, Beauty Box Online.
And that's such a wonderful way to track where your gift is making an impact. And you still have time, as Alex mentioned, because National Collection Week is going on right now, November 18th through the 25th. So today's only the 20th. You have until the 25th. So more information is available at SamaritanSpurs.org/OCC, SamaritanSpurs.org/OCC. And Alex, for those who say, this is kind of a busy season and a busy time, what's just one last word of encouragement for why people who, I think we have just received so many blessings in this country through our election, through so many other things that it's just such a wonderful time to give back. But maybe for someone who thinks they're too busy, what would be your word of encouragement to participate?
Yeah, I would say when you pack an Operation Christmas Child shoebox gift, whether it's a physical one or whether it's online, you are a part of something big that God is doing. You are part of sending the gospel of Jesus Christ to a child. When children receive Operation Christmas Child shoebox gifts, pastors are receiving these boxes, and they're using them as an opportunity to share the gospel. And then those kids are invited back to go through a 12-week discipleship lesson. So for 12 weeks, kids are being discipled. And it all starts with that person packing a shoebox gift, and the shoebox gift goes on a journey. So I encourage you. You are part of changing a person's life for eternity. Kids coming to know the Lord Jesus Christ into their relationships. It may not be right there and then when they receive the shoebox gift, but it may be years later when they make the connection, just like I did as a 7-year-old boy. And so packing a gift is sending the gospel of Jesus Christ to children all over the world, changing lives for eternity, and you can be part of that. And so hope you get involved and have fun.
Yes, well, thank you so much. Go to SamaritanSPurse.org/OCC to get involved. And you can always reach me and my team, Jenna, at afr.net.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family